Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, everybody. Let's see who do we got. All right, welcome to this special edition of Judaism 101. Um, like I mentioned, I think last week, yes, there will be a point in which we are once again talking about rituals of mourning and death. I haven't forgotten about those, but a couple of things on the calendar made us go a little bit out of order, and one of those things is today. Last week we did the Tu B'Shvat Seder because we were just a day away from Tu B'Shvat. But today, it is Super Bowl Sunday, which means only one thing in the Jewish mind: tefillin. I mean, of course. I mean, what else would you think of? In all seriousness, let me explain what I mean. We talked a number of months ago about matters of prayer. And so some of this is going to bring back some of those topics and some of those ideas. So I'll try to, backtrack as needed. But what we really, but the reason why we're talking about this on Super Bowl Sunday is that a number of years ago, the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs. This is the organization for men in conservative synagogues across North America and indeed across the world. Decided, okay, you know what? This would be the day, Super Bowl Sunday, a time that people are going to be likely around because they're going to be watching the big game at some point that afternoon. So why don't we take the morning of that day and to remind people about the mitzvah, about the commandment to wear tefillin on a daily basis, on every weekday. And so it started out, I believe, in a parking lot in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the conservative synagogue there, and has spread across the world. So and they do it every year on Super Bowl Sunday. So I figured, you know what, let's do this today, at least in some way. Let's teach about tefillin and explain why this is an important commandment, an important ritual. Um, so first of all, I want to note that the idea of the tefillin, or which is translated in English as phylacteries. Um, the idea of tefillin dates back to the Torah. There are several points, most prominently in the paragraph following the Shema, the paragraph in Deuteronomy that speaks of, Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God Adonai is one. And then it goes into all of the different places and ways in which we need to keep God's ideas and ideas and commandments in our minds and in our hearts. And one of those ways uh, has to do with the quote is, bind them as a symbol on your arm and as a sign between your eyes. Bind these words. Well, how do we bind these words? Judaism is not in favor of tattoos as a general practice. So this is not telling us to tattoo words onto our bodies. So how do you take a Sharpie and put it on? No, you don't do that. What you do instead is, well, essentially what they came up with was the idea that if you were to write these words in a scroll and put that scroll in a little box and make it possible to wear those boxes on our arm and on, between our eyes, on our heads, then we would fulfill that commandment. Now, what that looks like may not necessarily be obvious, but what's amazing, really, is that the design that our original rabbis came up with for tefillin, they're pretty much the same as what we do right now. So I will show you those in just a moment. I'm going to show you the pair of tefillin that I wear. Yeah, question, are we streaming on YouTube this morning? Yes, we are. So um, anyway, so yes, so we have these objects here. So I want to show you what we mean by this. Um, so like I said, the idea is to put these scrolls in boxes. Well, this is what the box looks like. Here, I'll try to make it a little clearer, right? Essentially, you have these little boxes made of leather, okay? And then there are these leather straps that are tied to the box. Now, this leather strap is going to go a pretty long way. This is the tefillin one wears on one's arm. I know I'm not really giving you the scope of how long this is, but it is pretty long because it needs to fit all across the arm and across the hand. And I'll show you what that means in a little bit. The head tefillin looks pretty similar. And once again, there are straps that are knotted onto the box. And then those straps are made so that they can fit around your head. And again, I'm going to be demonstrating all this. I'm going to be demonstrating how you put on tefillin and what that whole process is. But essentially, you make it so that, in other words, this right here, you fit your head into this. And I will show you that as we go along. So that's what tefillin looks like. And again, it's looked relatively similar all the way through for the last couple thousand years at least. Maybe a couple more things before we get into actually wearing it. The question is, when do you wear it? You wear it every morning that is not a major holiday or Shabbat. The reason why you don't wear it on Shabbat or a major holiday is because tefillin is considered a prominent sign of the commandments. And one thing that was determined is that you don't necessarily need those signs on Shabbat or holidays, because on Shabbat or holidays, we're getting enough in terms of signs. Now, does this sound like a reason that was determined later after the practice existed? Yeah, it kind of does. Kind of sounds like people didn't wear them on Shabbat and holidays, and we had to kind of come up with a reason why not. Well, be that as it may, that's the reason that they offer. Questions so far?
I've got a question to kind of off back on the tattoos. Is that tattoo, I don't know if it's a rule or whatever it is, was that prior to World War II or that was just after World War II in the concentration camps?
It says it in the Torah. It says in the Torah that you should not make a permanent mark on your body.
Is it that clear cut that said that much?
Yeah, that
Okay.
is. It is. I would say that I don't you know, there is a sense that for a time people would be prevented from being buried in a Jewish cemetery if one had a tattoo. That is not a practice that I promote. I don't want to, I mean, I think that of all the things to worry about in terms of burial, I think it's a very minor thing. And so I have no problems with someone with a tattoo and being buried in a Jewish cemetery. I don't think it, I think that idea came across just to discourage people from getting tattoos in the first place. I don't think it's the worst thing. Catherine, you had a question.
Yeah, so the process is to wear the tefillin during morning minyan.
Ideally, that's
Okay,
the ideal
so
time.
yeah, okay, so I'm just trying to visualize the practice. I know when you put on talit, you say a little blessing and then you enter the shul or something like that. Would that be the same thing for attending minyan with the tefillin?
Yes, yes, and I'll be showing you. I'll be showing you that as well. But 100%. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
sure. And in fact, actually, this is a good lead in. I'm going to now put on my talit because the idea is that the talit, the prayer shawl, one wears that. Um, you put it on prior to putting it on tefillin, and you also don't remove it until you've taken your tefillin off. So the talit does have that prominence because the talit is something that's supposed to be worn every morning, whether it's a weekday or a Shabbat or a holiday. So the blessing for a talit. So what I do is I take what's called the atara, which is a little collar that they have here, and it has the blessings for the talit written on it. At least it does on
Rabbi,
mine. Yeah, sorry.
is there any procedure if you drop your tefillin as I just did?
Oh, typically you just sort of like dropping a siddur. You gotta give it a little kiss.
No.
But other than that, yeah, that's all you do. Yeah, it's not like dropping a Torah scroll, which is a much bigger deal. So it's okay. So blessing for Talit. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehit atef batzitzit, which means blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has kept us holy by God's commandments and commanded us to don literally the tzitzit, the fringes. You give it a little kiss either side, and then like Superman or Supergirl's cape, you drape it across you. So there's your talit. Okay, so tefillin. By the way, tefillin is always it's always black, right? It's kind of painted black by certain ink. Now, if the ink over time wears off, which it can happen, there's actually a term for that. That term is to fill in the blank. That's that's something that I've made up. That's not really the actual thing. There actually, but in all seriousness, there is a procedure that if the dark parts actually wear off, that there is actually they sell like actual pens. That you don't take a Sharpie. I mean, like you take like an actual pen with a pen that's specially made for it in order to kind of blacken what is there already. So
Is it leather?
it is leather.
I got here a little late. Okay,
You're fine. You're fine. Yeah, Mark.
You could use shoe polish?
Tell me
No, it's a special. It's a
tell
special
me when
thing.
I get overly intrusive because this is something I don't know anything about. And I have my father's tefillin here, which I don't think have perhaps been worn since the 1940s. And they are like have this red thing, and then I discovered you can take that off. I assume it's just a cover for protection.
Yeah, it's just some of these. I mean, these did have similar little boxes over it, little cardboard protective things. They're just to it's just an extra layer of protection. It's not something that's a sacred part of it.
And the head thing has a shin on either side of it, and the other one does not.
Yeah.
Is
So
that usual or
maybe
something?
this may be a little. Let me see if I can get the lighting a little better. Okay, maybe. All right. So
Yeah.
you see the letter shin there. And yeah, the shin is, I mean, the shin it stands for one of the names we have for God, which is Shaddai. Why it's on the head and not the arm, I don't know, but I think one of the reasons, but here's my suspicion. So you may notice that the arm tefillin, the box is completely solid. There is one scroll written in here, and the box is solid. The head tefillin, the box is not solid. If you look here, it's actually 4 little boxes in one, kind of pasted together, if you will. And because there was a dispute, okay, there are 4 times in which tefillin is mentioned in the Torah. Do we need to write all 4 mentions on one scroll? Or do we need to write 4 different scrolls, each with 1 mention of tefillin from the Torah? And of course, the rabbis compromised because that's, they did a halfway measure. In other words, the arm tefillin, all 4 mentions are on one scroll, so you only need 1 box. And the head tefillin, there are 4 different scrolls, 1 for each mention of tefillin. And so you have 4 little tiny boxes that are pasted together in some way.
4 different scrolls.
So wait a minute, does that mean to properly wear tefillin, you have to have both?
Yep.
Okay.
But it comes in a set. I mean,
okay.
It's not like, it's sort of like shoes, right? I mean, you don't have a thing, buy 1 shoe, get 1 free. I mean, that's not really, it comes in pairs.
Do the boxes open?
The boxes can open but if they do, they're broken. Right. So they're actually, like every once in a while, like when that happens, somebody actually keeps actually sometimes keeps it and uses it, donates it as like a teaching material for somebody. Yeah.
You can't glue it back together or something?
No, if something is fixable, it's something that a sofer, a scribe or a soferet, a female scribe, should, they're the only ones that I know of that are equipped to do it in a proper way.
So females make these for the men?
Potentially, it's possible.
Well, is that pretty much the people who make them are female?
No. It's whomever. It's whomever. I should mention though that like many commandments that we have, tefillin was something that in many generations was assumed only that men would do. That is no longer the assumption in the conservative movement. I wouldn't say that that a lot of women in the conservative movement necessarily wear tefillin on a regular basis, but it is still something that we do encourage, and something that is certainly it is not only allowed but also again encouraged. So oftentimes tefillin is associated with men because still in most Orthodox circles, it's assumed that men wear tefillin and women do not. But everybody, I believe everybody can and ought to, if possible. Okay, so.
You didn't ask him.
Sorry, there's one more?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, on my things, there's on the bottom, there's like this translucent material that's sewed on, and on the head one you can see 4 scrolls actually
okay.
on there, but on the arm one you can see 2 things. Is that 1 scroll and it's folded, or
that would be my guess. I get the sense that your tefillin, I believe, are it's like it wasn't made yesterday. Like it is like they're okay. So I think that maybe just have been from just age and use and things like that. So is the reason why they might be translucent a little bit. But that I can't really explain. But I'm guessing it was sort of folded up a certain way.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I have a question before you go on.
Yeah,
There
no
are
worries.
several sets of tefillin in the hallway by the small chapel at the synagogue.
Mhm.
Have you looked at them, or has anybody looked at them to see if they are like broken or intact for people? We used to have people use them when we had morning minions, which we don't have anymore in the building. I just didn't know if we had any full sets that were still intact, or if we had ones that needed to go to the Geniza or need to be used for teaching or what have you.
I haven't looked at them, but I'm happy to. And I don't know whether people have looked at them prior to that point. My sense is that if I mean, I could certainly take a look and make sure that there isn't any major damage with them. A scribe, I would imagine, might would probably have a keener eye to potential defects. But so it's something I could take a look at, and it would be worthwhile to manage them, certainly. Um, by the way, there are places that oftentimes look for donations of tefillin, so that may be something to consider at some point. What arm do you put the arm tefillin on? The idea is that it should be your non-dominant arm. So the non-dominant arm, because you want to be able to use your dominant arm. So I am right-handed, so I wear it on the left arm. Obviously, the same, vice versa. It would be. Now, people ask oftentimes, all right, well, what if you're ambidextrous? Or as Yogi Berra would put it, what if you're amphibious? Well, if you're amphibious, you probably shouldn't be wearing tefillin. But if you're ambidextrous, just pick the arm that you honestly use the most, and put it on the other. So, all right. So here's what I do. Now, the arm tefillin, the box, needs to rest on one's bicep, basically one's arm muscle, or I barely have an arm muscle, but assuming one has an arm muscle, that's where you'd put it. And so there's there's a hole here. So I thread my arm through this hole. And kind of like have this sort of tighten up this loop here. Okay. So now that I've got this on my bicep, I say the first blessing. This blessing is Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehaniach tefillin. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, instilling in us the holiness of mitzvot by commanding us to put on tefillin. So that's the first one you say. So at this point, it's in this loop. Now, the question is, what do you do from there? Well, what happens is you start to wrap the leather straps onto your arm. This is why you have this phrase, the worldwide wrap. That's why this one I didn't come up with. This is why the men's club does these. It's called the worldwide wrap. So this is what today is really essentially. It's the idea of wrapping tefillin, that you are wrapping it around your arm. So in order to do this, it depends on how your tefillin is tied. It's not always the same. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it away from me. You see, I make this little V here. That way, I'm able, it's able to stay on. Because if I didn't do that, then it would all kind of, it all drift down my arm. And you have to make it reasonably tight. This is one thing that often kind of spooks people a little bit. It has to be reasonably tight, or else it's going to fall off your arm. So it should pinch a little, but it shouldn't cut off the circulation in your arm. The rule of thumb I always give is if your arm starts turning purple, it's too tight. Loosen it up, right? So but it should pinch a little. In fact, actually, when you're done wearing tefillin for a certain amount of time, usually there are little, marks on on your arm, which do take a little bit of time to fade. They do fade away. If they don't fade away, if they don't fade away in in over several days, contact your doctor. But I don't think that you have to worry about that. Okay, so the idea is then to wrap the tefillin and to do 7 times between one's elbow and one's wrist. Okay. And so as you're doing that, there's actually a quote from Psalm 145, which is Poteach et yadecha umaspia l'chol chayratzon, that God opens up God's hand and gives us all and provides us with all of our needs. And that phrase in Hebrew has 7 words. So as we are recalling the arm of God, when we put this on our arms, we recall that as well. So oftentimes I go, Poteach et yadecha umaspia l'chol chai ratzon. Okay. So I've done these 7 wraps, if you will. But again, it's hard to convey this on here, but I still have a lot of strap left. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the leftover strap and just wrap it around my hand, just, kind of hang on to it. Just for now. We'll get to the hand in a little bit. So that's the start of the arm tefillin, and it looks something like this. Now, I gotta say that there are plenty of ways in which Judaism is a universalist religion. There are plenty of times in which what we do is somewhat similar, at least in idea, if not ritual, to other religions. This is one of those things that's distinctly Jewish. No one else is doing this. And that's something that I think that's kind of nice. Every once in a while, to have something that's just unique to us, right? Not taking away what other religions do, but I think it's just kind of nice every once in a while to have something that, yeah, this is our thing. Okay. Questions at this moment?
Rabbi,
Yeah, Richard and then Catherine.
is there clockwise or counterclockwise? Isn't there a difference whether it's Ashkenazi or Sephardic?
I was taught by someone, yes. I mean, I was taught by someone who followed Sephardic ritual. And so since he taught me, that's what I do, and that's how my tefillin are oriented. So I wrap it away from my body. There are some where the knot is such where you would wrap it toward your body. Neither way is wrong. But there are some where you'll have, Western European or Eastern European, customs as opposed to, Mediterranean communities. You may have somewhat different customs.
So I've seen online, just looking at tefillin, that if you're going to order it, they ask you which way you're going to wrap it.
Interesting. Yeah. And you know what? Again, neither way is incorrect. So, yeah.
I didn't know if that had something to do with the construction of, like, how the
just where the knot that connects this is situated.
Okay.
That makes a difference on that. All right.
Wait a
Yes,
minute.
sorry, Catherine, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you wrapped the leather strap tightly to hold the box and the prayers in place.
Mhm.
But in my personal opinion, there's a lot of practices in Judaism that are not easy, not comfortable. They make us aware that we're doing something intentional.
Mhm.
Could that be part of why we wrap it tightly?
It's, you know what? I mean, I think that is an extra layer of meaning that you can put to it. I generally think of this practice as just a practical one.
Okay.
Like if I didn't do it this way, it would fall off. And by the way, it's especially when one starts putting on tefillin, it's not uncommon that like once in a while it's like, oh, did I not do this tightly enough? Okay, it starts to fall off and you got to do it again. Like it takes practice. There's no question.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
why do you put the one on your arm first? Because it seems to me that messes with your dexterity when you're trying to put the one on your head.
Why the arm first? Probably because in the Shema, the idea of putting the words on one's arm is mentioned before the mention on of the words on one's head. That's the only reason I could think of. So just to keep it like very sort of strict, according to the text. But
I guess it's too late now, since you said it's supposed to be done today. But the men's club out at Oak Ridge did this several years ago, and the other guys wanted to do it more than I did. So I was a photographer. So there's a picture on Facebook of us there. I'm on the other side of the camera, so I don't show up. And we just never talked about doing it again. It was the order wrap, and I think we were doing it with Zoom or whatever the regional organization over the local chapters are, which I think was out of Nashville. And if you wanted to bring it up either next year or sometime, I think it'd be more interesting if somebody there was with instructors properly in what we're doing, because we were pretty much being instructed over Zoom, and the guys that were getting together, none of us were real sure how to go about it. And
yeah,
Jack
yeah.
Love, Mark Foreman are members of your synagogue they're active in the men's club too, and either one of them coordinated with them.
I think that maybe this could be maybe the launching of something like that. So we'll see. I mean I appreciate it. Maybe we'll get a few maybe we'll get a few more people next year.
Yeah,
so,
relaunching.
All right. So now the head, right? So where do you put this on your head? Well, the commandment says that you put it between your eyes, and what was determined is that the box should rest at your hairline, or in my case, where my hairline used to be. So yes, it does mean that someone who has male pattern baldness, it kind of just sort of rests in the, in the middle of the head. I'll show you in just a moment. But, and because I have this large kippah, I take it off for just a brief second just to sort of put this here. Now, the idea is to start with having this kind of loose. And I'm gonna put this back on. And then you say the second blessing, which is Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tefillin. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, instilling in us the holiness of commandments by giving us the mitzvah of tefillin. And then when we're kind of tightening it up around our heads, we say, Baruch Shem Kavod Machuto Le'olam Va'ed. Praise be God's glorious sovereignty throughout all time. So yeah, that's what it looks like. And the knot, I don't know I'm doing this back, so I hope you can see this. The knot is supposed to sort of rest in the middle of the back of your head. So yeah, this is, and
the head one, assuming you got your own, it just stays tied. You don't untie it, retie it. You just have to, if you're sharing tefillin, you gotta maybe work with it, but normally it just stays tied. You don't tie or untie it.
Right. No, it stays tied. Exactly. So this is what it looks like. So again, this is the sort of thing that, yep, other people do not do this. But it's kind of our thing. So
that's the thing. The way you explain it makes it. Before I did it, because it was a meeting that the guys getting together, didn't mean anything. But your explanation, it's just that It's just a Jewish thing that goes, and it doesn't require any cutting. That's the good thing about it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So so good. So now we have again, we got your arm, you got your head, and now you got your hand. And I've been holding on to this for a little bit. So what do you do? This is where it gets a little complex, or more complex than it was than it's been. And but I wish to offer you, reassurance that there is no one way that you absolutely have to do this part. In other words, there are a lot of different customs in how you do it, but the basic goal is like, how do you tie this around your hand, right? You do it, and you make sure to do a couple of things. First of all, you try to make it so that the Hebrew letters Shin, Daled, and Yud are spelled out somehow on your hand. Shin, Daled, and Yud making the word Shaddai, which as I mentioned before, is one of those names for God. The other thing is that regardless of how you do it, is to make 3 wraps of this around one's middle finger. Please understand that this is not a reference to the way that contemporary American society understands the middle finger. That's not the idea. But the idea is that you are wrapping it around as if we are betrothing ourselves to God. So it's like doing that around the ring finger, but for whatever reason, the middle finger was chosen as the one a couple thousand years ago, so we still maintain that. But the idea is that you're putting it around as if it's a ring. Okay. Here's how I do it, and again, there are many different ways. So what I do is I start the shin. Okay. Like I've got this here. So I start the shin. I do one of the arms of the shin like this. Then I do 3 wraps around the middle finger. And as I do, speaking of the idea of betrothal, there are verses from the book of Hosea, which go as follows. Ve'erastichli le'olam, ve'erastichli b'tzedek uvmishpat uvchesed uvrachamim, ve'erastichli be'emunah v'yadat et Adonai. That means, I betroth you to me, meaning God, forever. I betroth you to me with righteousness and justice, with love and compassion. I betroth you to me with faithfulness. Then shall you be at one with Adonai. So this is how this looks. So then what I do is I do one time with the ring and middle finger. And this way, I mean, again, it's kind of interpretive, but like, and this is going to look backwards to you, but it's kind of like I got a letter Daled and then a little letter Yud. Does it have to look exactly like a Daled or Yud? You do your best. It's okay. And now I've got the Daled, I got the Yud, and then I've got the start of a shin. So what I do is I then do this and this, and look at this, I got a shin. Okay. And then I still have a little bit of leftovers. So I wrap it around sort of the middle leg of the shin. And then I've got just a little more, so I just sort of tuck it on like the palm of my hand so that it just sort of stays. So now I got a shin, Daled, and Yud. Now I know some people who, when they wrap tefillin, they have the shin, Daled, and Yud. The design is they have the shin, Daled, and Yud visible on the palm of their hand rather than the back of their hand. Again, it's not wrong. None of it is wrong. You're just trying to do your best. And this is where, when it comes to, design, I mean, I've, part of my rabbinic work over the years has sometimes involved teaching young children, children who are about to reach the age of bar mitzvah, how to put on tefillin. Well, so they're usually 12 years old. They usually are not at their full adult height yet. So they're wearing tefillin, and the tefillin may or may not fit all that well. So you have sometimes where, it's like they'll put on the head tefillin and then it falls like onto their nose because it's the loop is too loose. And or there's just so much strap here that it just winds up being this whole mess here. Give yourselves a break when it comes to all this. So and then the idea is that once you have these things on, you're ready to do weekday morning prayer. And you wear this pretty much throughout a weekday morning service. Now, do you have to wear it the whole time? For the most part, but at minimum, one should at least say the Shema when they do that, while wearing tefillin. So I'm going to briefly say the Shema and the paragraph that follows Ve'ahavta, which explains the mitzvah of wearing tefillin. And there's going to be a point where we mention that mitzvah, and the custom is when we refer to it, we actually touch the boxes to correspond with, oh, I understand why I'm doing this. So the Shema starts as follows: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, which means, hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai alone. Praised be God's glorious sovereignty throughout all time. I'm going to read the next paragraph first in Hebrew and then in English. Actually, I'll chant it in Hebrew. So, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech u'shochbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. And that paragraph means in English, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. These words which I command you this day, you shall take to heart. Teach them diligently to your children and recite them at home and away night and day. And then the parts where I referred to the tefillin: bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a reminder above your eyes. And then inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates. That's a reminder of a mezuzah, which is another topic as well. So the Seagull's cat apparently would like to participate in wearing tefillin, which is all good. We'll try to get kitty size. No, it's all good. Anyhow, so that's essentially the mitzvah. Now, when a service is over, you have to put it away, right? You don't wear these all day. Now, by the way, there were hundreds of years ago, it actually wasn't uncommon for certain pious Jews to wear tefillin throughout the day. I can't imagine. Because first of all, like many holy objects, you're not supposed to wear tefillin while going to the bathroom. So you'd have to remove the tefillin before going to the bathroom and then potentially put it back on afterwards. Well, that sounds like a pain. And then also eating with it is a little awkward to say the least. So I don't know how one would do it for that amount of time. A typical morning, weekday morning service, you'd be wearing these, I don't know, 40-ish minutes, something like that, I would say on average. So then when it comes to removing them, you reverse the process of putting them on, meaning you take the straps off of your hand first, and then hang on to them. You take off your head tefillin. Okay. All right. And then one should be careful, if possible, to not allow the straps to touch the ground. Sometimes that's not easy to do, depending on where you are. But if possible, to not let them touch the ground. And then you unwrap the arm tefillin. And then once you've done that, you're allowed to remove your talit. Now, in order to store the tefillin, the idea is to, I mean, yeah, you can put this back in a bag kind of loosely, but it probably wouldn't be it'd be kind of sloppy. So we try to treat this, with a certain amount of respect. So we basically take the straps and try to tie it as tightly as we can back around the box apparatus so that it's, because to have look, the idea is that it's a sacred object. So to kind of like toss them around is not a good thing. I mean, like I said, I've worked, at different times with, 12-year-olds learning to put on tefillin before their bar mitzvah. And so there would be, unfortunately, sometimes you'd have some of these teens, or preteens, being obnoxious, and they would take these straps and they would try to like play whip each other with them or something like that, which I'm just like, come on. So it's a sacred object, right? You don't just sort of play around with it. And ideally you have kind of a nice little bag to put them in. This came with this nice little, pouch to put this in. Now, the big question, why? Besides the fact that it's in the Torah, right? Yes, the fact that it's in the Torah is the reason why. But what do we get out of it? What's interesting about it? Well, part of it is what I've already mentioned, I think, which is that you want to be, there's something that's uniquely Jewish, and it's nice to be able to have those moments when we can. But the other thing I want to offer was a teaching that a cantor in Denver once taught me, cantor Martin Goldstein. And he said that the idea is that when we wrap the tefillin around us, it's like we're being wrapped in a bit of luxury. Leather is certainly in ancient times was considered a luxurious object, as it is in many quarters now still today. So think about how we feel waking up in the morning. At least, certainly if it's me, not so great, right? So to wake up and then just have this moment of, wow, there's something luxurious awaiting me. It's kind of a nice feeling. And other people have talked about the idea of, and and I'm not trying to be punny with this, but the idea of sort of being tied to the commandments and tied to a set of rituals and tied to a and tied to the belief in God. Those are all some spiritual meanings that I think that one can gather when putting on tefillin on a weekday morning. It is something that you can do pretty much anywhere other than a bathroom. It is something you can pretty much do anywhere. Meaning, okay, if you're not near a synagogue that offers a weekday morning service, you can wear it in your home. It's not uncommon to go to an airport, and you will every once in a while see an observant Jew. They have an early morning flight and they haven't had the chance. They can't get to a morning minyan before getting their flight, and they're putting on their tefillin and praying somewhere in the terminal. In fact, there are some. I know that the O'Hare Airport in Chicago has a chapel, and one time I actually put on talit and tefillin and did a service, on my own in that ecumenical chapel. You can, and you can do this, kind of pretty much, just about everywhere. There is a joke told about a priest minister and a rabbi who are astronauts who are drafted to be the first clergy to go into outer space. And after they returned to Earth, and they orbited the Earth several times, and then they came back down to Earth. They asked the priest afterwards what was that like, and the priest said, "I felt the presence of the Holy Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost in a way that I never have. It was just incredible." They asked the minister what it felt like, and he said, "I have never felt so close to Jesus in my life. What an experience." Then they asked the rabbi what he made of it, and he said, "I was barely paying attention because every half an hour, tefillin on, tefillin off, tefillin on, tefillin off, tefillin on." The idea is that you're watching you're going around the sun so many times that you're always, um, so. Now you can now that we've done this, now you can understand what that joke was about. We have a few more minutes before the top of the hour. So anything else that you're wondering? Anything else that occurs to you? Yes, Janet.
This is sort of goofy, but there are a lot of vegans these days.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't wear leather? Is there a vegan alternative?
I don't know if there is anything that's viable. I don't think anything that's received any kind of official stamp of approval.
Yeah.
I know that for some vegans, this is a real,
it's an issue. Yeah.
it's an issue, right? Because it's like, what are we?
Leather shoes or
Yeah. So I don't have a ready-made, I don't have a ready-made explanation. It's just, yeah, there's a tension there. Other questions? Yes, Mark.
If Messianics wear tefillin?
I don't know.
Ain't Jewish
Whether
anyway.
I don't know whether any do. I guess it's I guess I imagine maybe feasible that they might. Yeah, I'm not aware whether any do, whether that is considered part of their practice. Richard.
Again, looking online at tefillin, some say this is kosher, but we don't have a certificate for you. And others say your tefillin is kosher and we have a certificate.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that the latter version is way more expensive.
Well, that's another thing. There's like a huge price range.
Yeah. So, okay. If one were interested in purchasing tefillin for themselves. It is not inexpensive. I would say that any pair of tefillin that's under $300 certainly is not a kosher set of tefillin, right? In other words, because, and the reason why that makes a difference is that when things are certified, you have to pay the one certifying.
Mhm.
Right? It's one of the reasons why kosher meat is way more expensive than regular meat. It's because you're paying for the supervision and paying for that person's time. So, yeah, I would say anything other than $300, that's right away a that would be a red flag for me. I know that there are. I know that the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs, or so I think it's fjmc.org. I know that they have in the past worked with distributors to make, to enable people to buy, some basic but perfectly kosher sets of tefillin. And when I say basic, I mean, it's not like there's a such a huge range in quality, but some of them, they're a little shinier, they're a little, I don't know. It's not like you can do so much to make a pair of tefillin fancier or anything like that. But I do know, and maybe part of it was sort of being hustled, but like when my son Jonathan had his bar mitzvah, um, I went, we were in Israel and I bought him his tefillin there. Um, I think I paid $800. I may have overpaid. I think, I think it's quite possible. I mean, I'm sure I would have been able to get a legitimate set for less. Um, this was also a struggling business looking for some kind of help. So I thought, all right, I'll support. Um, I mean, just as a ballpark, I would say you can definitely get a legitimate set for $500. Hopefully less, somewhat less, but it is a challenge. But I would say check out fjmc.org. They certainly used to have a big push to make tefillin just a little more affordable. I hope that they're continuing that. Catherine, I think you had a question.
Yeah, it was kind of along the same line. How do you know? I could go onto Amazon and just as an example and look them up. But how do I know I'm buying the right type, the right quality, the right this, the right that? But you kind of answered that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go to Amazon on that. Certainly on that. I mean, it's not like yeah, they don't have like it's not like you can get a prime set of tefillin or anything like that. But I would say, go to like, Judaica bookstores. There are Judaica bookstores that do that, um, and I would start there. Um, the tefillin I have, I mean, was a pair of tefillin that when I was 13, um, it's like, oh, I need tefillin, and my father's like, oh, I got this as a gift and somebody got it for me. And I think my grandmother had gotten it for him when she was in Israel years before, and he was just sitting in his sock drawer. I mean, he just wasn't using it, and so that became my pair of tefillin.
How much detail does the Torah give on how they're made? I mean, does it say it has to be kosher cow leather, or just it says it has to be leather?
Yeah,
But
really not more than a sign upon your hand and a symbol between your eyes. That's really all it says. But again, it's just amazing that this is one that the earliest rabbis, when they put this together and they said, okay, this is what we think this means. That's pretty much held sway for thousands of years, pretty much. Um, And that's not the case with a lot of things. So it's pretty remarkable.
Was it probably end up, I'm sure it had to be, well, there probably wasn't any other material besides leather they could make it out of then, but and I presume cow leathers is we eat cows more than a sheep or gold or something. That's probably how it's ended up that way because it was kosher and it was more plentiful.
Yeah, I'm sure that, I'm sure that years ago, it's like the question of, all right, what do you do with the cow? People would argue about what should we do with the cow that your family owned. I think there was like a debate, do we make sure that it's used for food or do we make sure that it's used for leather that becomes tefillin? That became, of course, the infamous taste great tefillin debate that we had in okay, that was pretty terrible.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. And on that note, we've reached 11 a.m. And but look, I mean, you want this to hopefully have a little fun with all this. So, may your team of choice win today. May all the bunnies that you see be bad, and may you enjoy some food and drink with the people that you enjoy being with. And we will see you at this. We will see you over Zoom next Sunday at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank